Hello, friends. My name is Steve, and we're here today for the Page Doing Friday conversation. We have some very special guests tonight that I'm very excited to speak with. Robert, will you kick us off with some introductions? Let us know about you and your work.
Yeah, so I'm Robert Royal Poff. I am a horror writer primarily. I write a little bit of sci-fi, but it's mostly horror. My newest book is horror romance,
Hmm.
Sleeping Among Wolves. Am I allowed to plug right now?
Of course, yeah. Go
Okay.
for it. Yeah, of course.
It's a horror romance. So I like to stick with the romance theme. A lot of my work includes romance elements to it, but it's also like very graphic horror mixed intermixed in.
Oh, interesting. And Nico, can you tell us about you and your work?
Yeah, I actually used to write romance and now I write horror. Mostly everything horror or sci-fi horror. I'm an author, editor, and book reviewer. I have a couple of books already out, and this is a really big year for me because I have two novellas coming out this year.
Oh.
One in a month and one in October. So I'm really excited about that. Yeah, that's basically what I do.
So tell us about the book you have coming up. When is the release date? What's the title? What can we know about it?
It is coming out on June 15th through Psychotoxin Press. It's called Open House, and it's about a really up and coming realtor who ends up getting kind of kidnapped and trapped in the house that he is supposed to be selling. So it's kind of a twist on a haunted house. And yeah, in less than a month, that will be out, and I'm really excited. It's a really quick, easy read. It's like escapism horror. Just you want to get out of the reality of the world for like an hour. You can just dive into this and have some
Hmm,
fun.
very nice.
That
And of
sounds
course,
rad.
yeah, it does sound good.
I was,
And Chris?
I was going to say you can escape out of your own life, but the person in the book can't escape by the sounds of things. Uh,
Yeah.
dude, my name is Chris Mullen. I sometimes make YouTube videos, sometimes appear on Steve's channel, and generally hang out in the page tune forums and in the chats that we have here. So cool.
Glad you can make it. Yeah.
Yeah, glad to be here.
Yeah. Always good to have everyone. Thanks to everyone who's tuning in as well. And so, a question for both Robert and Nico: how do you mix romance and horror effectively? That sounds like a tricky thing to do to pull off. Are there any tricks that you use to do that?
Do you want to go first, Nico?
Oh, you're the romance horror expert. I'll let
Uh,
you do it.
okay. Actually, romance and horror are very similar in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
So people don't really like go into that very often, but they have the same kind of build up and they have the same like payoff
Hmm.
if you look at them on a broad aspect.
Mm.
So it's actually not as hard as it seems.
Hmm.
Uh because like you look at both of them and it's like this slow build up, this slow draw to this big booming payoff, which is either like blood and guts or like a kiss in either
Hmm.
aspect. And it's just kind of meshing the two and knowing when to hit which beat.
Yeah, that's
Hmm.
pretty accurate. I mean, like romance and horror, both genre fiction, right? So they both have their own formulas and they both have their own structures on how, different beats, like you mentioned, that readers expect. You expect like that first kiss, you expect a breakup, you expect them to get back together in romance, and then, in horror, you expect the villain and the killings and like they have their own beats, and meshing them up is pretty natural, I would say. In a lot of
Hmm.
ways, erotic horror is becoming quite the boom in indie. I don't know if you all
It's
have like
me.
kind of, yeah, like I don't know if you guys have noticed, like y'all have noticed that there's more sub calls being put out for
Hmm.
erotic horror and romance horror and things. Yeah, I think it's a pretty natural mesh up. It's just you probably won't have the typical happily ever after. I would imagine there might be some twists to that, which is really fun.
Oh. We have noticed that more romance is being integrated in lots of different genres. Is there a reason that any of you can think that we're seeing that kind of mixture now, more of blending romance and other genres together?
Well,
I mean, yeah, go
sorry.
ahead. You're fine.
I think romance is by and large the most popular genre.
Hmm.
It's also the best-selling genre. It's the most like widely spread genre, so it makes sense that it would be mixed in with other genres of those merits.
And there seems to be like an expectation in pretty much everything that there's going to be a romantic subplot. You know, when you see your two main characters and they start having some chemistry, it feels almost natural to push that a little bit and see where it goes. So I feel like it's kind of a natural integration with a lot of the things we write.
Yeah, it's funny you both mentioned the popularity of romance, and it gets a lot of grief, but a lot of people read romance.
A
It's a very
lot.
popular genre. So it is strange the amount of kind of grief it gets, but it's very popular and people love it. So
And it's fun and it's not easy to write. Everyone that criticizes any genre fiction, but especially like romance or, horror when they think it's easy because it has a formula, it's still very challenging. You still have to develop characters that are sympathetic and likable. You have to make the relationships believable. I mean, there's work to it. So it does take more than people think, but they are fun. You can devour them in an afternoon and feel happy at the end, or spicy at the end, depending on the level of heat your book has. So they're fun. They're fun.
oh, I
Yeah,
think
or
this is
if you're
just
mixing it with horror, you can feel infinitely sad at the end.
Yeah, that's very true.
there's always that. Yeah.
Sometimes that's needed though, right? Like we want to feel all of the feels in a nice safe way, and horror lets us do that too.
And it's a bit like you're saying that, you know, romance being hard to write because it is probably the most commonly told story and probably storytelling that we daily consume, whether that's TV, movies, books, or otherwise. So actually finding a way to connect with people, even though the kind of tropey things that happen are well established, must be fun and challenging, as you say.
Yeah, most definitely. It's like the more that a trope goes in and the more people that go into that trope, the harder it is to pull back your own unique angle with it.
Hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
how many
yeah.
books can you write that have like a secret child or like like enemies to lovers?
Yes,
So
yeah,
getting
exactly.
to play off of those is fun. And that's when like bringing like the horror or sci-fi element into it really adds a lot of creativity and
Mhm.
imagination. So, yeah, I think it's only natural for us to start blending genres more and more. Back in the day, everything had to have its own little brand, its own genre, make it easy to market, things like that. And now, especially in indie, that's why I love indie publishing. Everything can be mashed together and you don't have to be in a box. You can write what you want to write, and there's definitely an audience for it.
Yeah, that's why I love indie just in general because you're not put in a box and you don't have to. Of course, I'm sure it's going through your mind who your kind of target audience would be when you're writing. That's kind of a natural thing, but it is great to be able to write what you want to write and not feel like you have to hit certain benchmarks or have a certain topic or whatever the top selling topic is of the given period.
For sure.
Yeah, I agree.
That's really why I stopped writing romance. I was doing like inspirational romance, which didn't really hit well for me
Hmm.
anyways, but the the happily ever afters became quite an issue for me. Like when everyone died, like the hero always died. And my critique partners at the time were like, I really just don't see this being the genre that you make it in. you know like we really want you to reevaluate, take some time. um because yeah, you do have to fit a certain set of rules, which makes sense because if I sit down to read a romance, I am in the mood to have characters follow the rules. So nothing against that, just clearly that was not going to work for me.
And our friend Jared is here. Just want to say hi to
Hey,
Jared. Thank you
Jared.
for coming by, Jared. Matt's fantasy book reviews had a question. Question from a dummy: what is inspirational romance?
Me
Mm,
too.
Yeah, good question. Good question, Matt.
all right, so just hang with me through the whole. Okay, so inspiration romance is Christian romance. Now, I am liberal, so therefore I don't fit with any conservative Christian at all. And when I was started out writing in that, I wrote very like I wrote gay characters falling in love and getting married and happily ever afters, and very much like they found that they were not sinners, and like very anti-conservative. um, so if you can imagine the conversations I had
Mm.
with agents in
Mm.
that field, yeah, so that was another big reason that did not work for me, because they
Mm.
were not interested in that. They were not interested in characters who were considering having abortions. They were understandably. But I kind of wonder nowadays if I had stuck it out, if there would be a market,
Mm.
if maybe more people would be open to stuff like that. But back 10 years ago, nope,
Oh, wow.
not at all. They were like polite about the rejections, but very like, mm-mm, this is an uphill mountain. We're not climbing with you, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
but yeah, that's inspirational romance.
I would imagine it'd be a little bit maybe more open to now, especially in the indie world. I think you'd be have a wide audience for that.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
That's why I love indie. I would hope that they would be a little more open to that, but I'm happy in my horror world killing everybody, so that works too.
How long have both of you been writing?
I've been writing. Well, I've been writing in general, like basically my entire life. My fifth grade teacher actually started me on writing, as a way to combat my ADHD,
Hmm.
in the classroom setting. And I fell in love with it then. But writing, like publishing wise, about 3 years now.
Yes. And
Yeah.
Nico, you've been writing for a while then.
I have. It's been about, what are we at here? 11 or 12 years. I've been plugging away through the slush piles. I was in romance for about 5 or 6 years before switching over. So, yeah. It's been a while.
Yeah, and actually started out with poetry.
Mm.
I was trained by the Poet Laureate of York. If you know what a Poet Laureate is,
Mhm.
I don't. I actually
uh,
don't.
Oh,
they're
Yeah.
hired by the state government to teach poetry to the youth.
Oh, okay.
Uh, and the Poet Laureate of York took me in as a mentor figure. I'm actually good friends with her still. So I was
oh.
trained in poetry before anything else.
Hmm.
Have you published any poetry collections?
I have. I
Yeah.
would not recommend buying it because I am actually revamping it and
Oh, okay.
getting rid of a lot of the stuff I didn't like and getting in stuff that I do like.
Nice.
That's something I hear from people who write poetry. Is it because the poetry is a lot more personal or something than literary fiction, that they sort of take like more personal ownership of it? Because a lot of people say, "Oh, don't read that stuff. I've moved past that," or "I don't want you to go near that stuff because it's not really representative of me anymore." Something I hear quite a
Yeah,
lot.
it's very much like that. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
because it is me. Like
Mhm.
my other stories, though, characters, they have parts of me in them, obviously, but they're
Mhm.
not a direct reflection of me. Like the poetry collection is literally like I explain my first sexual episode. Here's a
Hmm.
poem about it. Like so it's very raw, it's very me, and some of them I just don't stand by anymore. Some of them I
Hmm.
do.
Mhm.
Do you think that having a poetry background, I always kind of wondered this about poets. Do you think having a poetry background actually helps with like writing technique? Like, do you think you're better at writing like imagery or exposition maybe because you have like a background that works with like, you do a lot of imagery, right? I imagine.
Yeah, I think I've always been told that I have very like flowery prose.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that comes from the poetic background, is like I'm used to seeing things in that very like abstract kind of like here's me describing a tree as like a fallen soldier type deal.
Yes, yeah. I love that. I love that. That's not something that necessarily comes easy to me, so I'm always excited to see it in other people's
Mm.
work. I'm always like, oh, that's so beautiful. Like, I would never imagine trying to think of a tree as like a fallen soldier. It's always so eye-opening to see. I love it.
Thank you.
Jeremy comments, it's got to be reverse psychology.
It's one of the interesting things because I've done a bit of songwriting myself, and I kind of kind of what you're saying there, Robert. You kind of put these very personal experiences into the songs, and you're like, God, these are just for me. And if they ever do go out, what I often find, and this probably doesn't happen with poetry because by nature people do analyze it. People have no idea what I meant. You know, when I was doing it, people take a totally different meaning than what I was trying to put out there, and I was like, oh my God, I've burned my soul here. And I don't know whether to be insulted or whether to be relieved that it didn't connect in the way that I thought, you know.
Yeah, that's definitely another thing with like poetry and songwriting and stuff is it's more like abstract, so you can take kind of your own meaning from it, which is kind of a double-edged sword.
What is that like when you write a poem or write a story that's very personal to you that you feel a very strong personal connection to, and somebody reads it, they have a different interpretation? Is that what does that feel like as a creator?
Well, I personally, I write in a way where I'm inspired by mostly inspired by like rap artists more than poets, but I'm inspired like Aesop Rock, Lupe Fiasco, if you know who they are.
Yes, very good, yeah.
So I purposely do more in abstract when I do poems, so that people can get their own meaning from it. So to me, it's like the intention, but to other people I can see it being like, whoa, I didn't mean that.
What about you, Nico? Have you had that experience before?
Yeah, that's interesting. I wrote a body horror story about menopause. It was a menopause horror story, okay?
Wow.
And I had two reactions that I loved. I had one woman who contacted me and said she literally cried because she felt seen, and I was like, beautiful, love it. And then a man, a man, okay, he just said that he didn't think that the stuff was like real because in the story the woman's skin's literally falling off, and he's like, I don't think that women's skin fall off, like I don't think that it would actually like have scales, or maybe it does, I don't know. And I just like was cracking up about like I feel like I taught him something, but the wrong things. I feel like he left thinking that women turn into like a lizard person or something like when they hit like 50, and I loved it so much. I love it. Interpret however you want. I will probably have a nice chuckle about it.
You made him curious enough to ask at the least.
You turn into lizard people, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's what happens.
Like,
Like
I feel like I need to wake my wife up.
55, everything just literally starts falling off your body into a pile, and then
Well, let's know the signs.
Yeah. It's biology, guys. It's just biology. It's crazy.
Everyone knows that. Star had a question. Robert, with your ADHD, do you have any tips for staying on task with your writing?
Yeah, so I actually I write while sitting on the floor, which is like a thing mentally where you have a different vantage point than you're used to. So your brain associates that vantage point with the task that you're doing while in that vantage point, which I only sit on the floor in that exact spot to write, so I kind of train my brain to associate that spot with writing. On top of that, I always set my phone aside because phones are the biggest demon when it comes to writing. So I always set my phone aside, even if you don't have ADHD. I think phones are just these terrible creatures when it comes to trying to get anything done.
Definitely.
That is so interesting about the sitting position. I teach maths for a living, and one of the biggest hurdles I found when I went to teach maths to change a career was having to think and do maths on my feet. My entire life, I had sat in a seat and either put my head in my hands or something, and without that ability to do, I found myself stuck. Like it totally interrupted the creative thought process or problem solving process, and I was like, is this just me, or is this thing? And what you've described there pretty much hits the nail on the head. That different vantage point of actually trying to work through or solve things that is alien to my normal process.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah,
it does. Yeah, I never thought of it that way. Yeah. What about you, Nico? Do you have any tricks to stay on task when you want to stay focused? Because it is tough.
It is tough. I usually write in a journal, actually, or a spiral notebook or something. The most the initial part, like the first draft, is really the hardest for me to stay focused because there's a lot of like fear that I'm going to fail or this is awful. There's a lot of self doubt that goes into that. And so I get really distracted and I will stop writing and I'll do something else. But I found that if I'm like writing it on a paper for some reason with a pen and a
Hmm.
paper, like for whatever reason, I don't know why, my brain just can relax and get it all out and not worry so much. And I can just be more productive in those early stages. Just something random that I found that works.
I wonder if it's the physical connection of your hand on the pen and the paper, and it's like this, like you're making physical contact, maybe. But yeah,
Maybe, yeah, I don't know.
very interesting. It's I think it's always interesting how we all have our own little tricks and things that we try to do to stay engaged because it can be tough,
Hmm.
definitely. And Yeehaw mentioned go Robert, go. And Jared, phones are demons for everything. Yes, they are. Uh, Something I've talked to other authors about is staying on task with all the different social media platforms. How do you divide your time between all these other platforms? And do you feel like you have to be present on other platforms to kind of keep the word out? Is that something that you feel like you have to do, or is that something that kind of you do for fun?
Mm, I do feel there is a need to be present somewhere. People need to be able to find you and connect with you. Twitter is really the reason that I have a career, I think, because not just can people find me, but I found so many submissions and publishers. I wouldn't be published if I wasn't on Twitter, finding Unnerving and Eddie Generous and getting those first doors open for me. And as I navigate more, it becomes a bit of a juggling act because I'm on, TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Substack. um, and I'm actually right now trying to decide if I want to do all the same content on everything or if I want to do just writing on one and just reading on one. I find TikTok is kind of up in the air on if I do like book reviews, I don't get a ton of people engaging, and then I do writing tips, I get a bunch of people engaging. So we might start spreading things out a bit, but I have a calendar and I have a schedule and I
Hmm.
plan
Wow.
everything out color coded because I'm very organized like that. And every day, I post based on that. So it's a bit of a job. I would love one day to have like an assistant who could do that aspect of things. I like being on social media. I like meeting people. I like that connection. The indie horror community is fantastic. And like I said, like I wouldn't be published without being on social media. But sometimes it is nice to get a break. Sometimes it can be very drama filled and exhausting for sure.
Yeah. What about you, Robert?
Well, I think I need Nico to teach me now because my strategy is only posting on Twitter and Facebook, and only occasionally throughout the day whenever I feel like it. I have no strategy at all.
I've delved into the deep end of the algorithms and the keywords and the music and things like that, and I've really been trying. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And so that's kind of where the exhaustion of it plays out. And like just like the mental health aspect of being online and keeping track of numbers, you can really get caught up in like how many followers do I have? How many likes do I have? And you got to like take a step back, or at least I do because I get very caught up in that stuff very quickly. But I do feel like if I miss a couple days, I'll be out of the loop. And that just might be me,
Mhm.
like the pressure I put on myself. So, like when I do need those mental health breaks from the toxic side of stuff, I still feel the need to go on there and at least post like what I'm reading or, something like that.
Mhm. And Chris, we've talked about that. We talked about that a little bit ago about Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I sort of in this, and I think a lot of people as consumers are in this kind of halfway house of, there's just so many different forms of social media. It's kind of overwhelming. It's a lot. I would sort of like to get rid of it all, but by doing so, I lose a lot of connections. I lose a lot of connections who I only interact with people. And I like the individuals and sometimes the interactions, but it's the volume that just gets too big sometimes, and you don't. You go on, you doom scroll, and you kind of say, I don't even know if I got anything out of that time that I invest in it, because it's not. I'm not getting what I wanted out of it, and that kind of feeds into the thing of, well, I'll maybe leave it longer the next time. And I just feel that, especially with the changes to Twitter, etc., a lot of people are just going, this is actually a waste of time now, and I do wonder, especially because a lot of indie authors, especially, really have relied on that so much for a long time, and it must be a concerning period to go through, because I haven't seen the Gareth Powell, who was on the other week. He has shut down his Twitter account this week and is only doing
Oh, he
Substack
did.
now. Yeah, he
Oh,
did.
wow.
So he
Oh,
came
wow.
off this week and says, look, pretty much what I just said, that I don't know what I'm getting out of it in the same way. My audience is on Substack, which is easier for him, as he said, because he's more of an established author. So, that he's very cognizant of that, but he says, like, when you're deciding where to put your time and where the best place to put it, but like you're saying there, Nico, it's very difficult.
It is, and it is very time consuming, especially if you're just starting out and building an audience. I mean, I when I started out, Monday was social media day, and that's all I did on my
Wow.
Mondays, because it wasn't just me posting, it was also me trying to find people that I could connect with, that I had something in common with, that I thought would be fun to build like a community with, and then, liking people and engaging with people and doing, on all the different platforms. I mean, it really is a job, especially when you're starting out. And I would love to go to Substack and that be the like one, because it is an awesome platform, I will say. Like, you can literally have everything on one. Um, but I'm over there and I have like 40 people that I connect with, and I have 6,000 people on Twitter, and it's like I just can't switch to one. Like, where are all the people that I would talk to? Like, I feel like I'm kind of starting over, in Substack. So yeah, I don't know. It's time consuming, and it can be exhausting, and it can be fun. I'm have like a nice community that I've worked really hard to build up, and I don't want to lose them, because we all met on Twitter. But they are leaving, and I do agree. Like, my For You page or whatever on Twitter is not at all who it used to be. I have to search for my friends now to find out what they're doing, because they're not popping up. And I'm like, what am I doing? I'm spending all this time searching for people that used to, pop up. And yeah, I can understand people leaving for sure.
Yeah, I mean, YouTube, etc., is no different. Like your recommendations, etc. Sometimes you watch the wrong video or too much of the wrong type of video, and that's your recommendations ruined for the next, I don't know how long. Or I left my account logged in, and my daughter watched 20 cat videos in a row, that kind of thing. You're like, oh, this is done for me now, and the people that I want to see aren't getting served to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my sister was using my YouTube once like 2 years ago, and she's 9, and she was using my YouTube, and it comes up and it's like, how to assassinate the president, and I'm like, what were you watching?
Amazing.
You're going to get some interesting calls from the FBI soon.
I
Just
think
so you know.
so.
You're on a list. I hope you know that.
Well, now you all are too. You're
Yes.
welcome.
Yeah.
But isn't it just an awesome, fascinating look into what inside the mind of what interests a 9-year-old, though, sometimes as well? Sometimes I just go, is this okay? Maybe it is. I don't know.
Yeah, it was like Minecraft, assassinate the president, Reddit, this.
Toy unboxings.
Yeah, toy unboxing.
Yeah.
The algorithms are such a complicated thing, and like Nico, you mentioned, you're trying to learn how it works and kind of like what to focus on, and the keywords and the hashtags or whatever it may be, and you learn about it, and you feel like you kind of like, okay, I think I'm getting it, and then the algorithm changes, and it's like,
Yeah, that's TikTok. That's my experience with TikTok. Me and TikTok have a love-hate relationship. Like, I feel like I am appreciative of the 200 views that I get, but that's the limit. Like, you can't get past unless you break through the algorithm. And so, I work really hard, and like with TikTok and like YouTube, I'm sure you put a lot of effort into the videos that you're doing. It's not like you know, a sentence and you tweet it, you're putting effort in. And so to constantly get hit at that 200, it's a little disheartening at times, you know. I'm appreciative of the 200. I love that. And then you get shadow banned and you're down to 0 views. And then you're like, what do I have to do to get out of the shadow ban world? And it's just too much. I have a website. Can everybody just go to like authors' websites like back in the day and we could just do that? That would be fantastic.
I noticed both of you have authors' websites, and I really appreciate that because it's an easy way for me to go directly to see what you're doing or to get links or to do. So I try to make an effort to sign up for newsletters and to kind of like visit and give it traffic because it's important to have that external place. That if Twitter shuts down tomorrow, my website's there, and so you can go visit and find links to my work. So it's nice.
Funny you mentioned that because I haven't posted on my newsletter in about a month and a half, and haven't actually even posted my new book on my website yet, which has been out for like 3 months now. Need to get on that sometime soon, but
Are you using TikTok too, Robert? Do you try that?
yeah, I am using it. I actually it's funny. I posted 2 poems the other day, like that I did spoken word of, and one of them is sitting at about 600 views, and I was like really happy with that. And one of them is at 14, and I posted them at the same time and with the same hashtags. I'm like, okay.
Oh, Robert, if I may. You have to here's what I learned about TikTok. You can't post videos like in a short amount of time. You have to post them like at least like 6 to 8 hours apart. I don't know why. Just
Oh, really?
TikTok does that, yeah. Or at least that's what I've been told, and I have seen the numbers different when I do that. Yeah, to spread them out. Like
Well,
you'll
hey,
notice
I'm
when people do
learning.
like part 1s and part 2s, they usually do part 1 one day and then part 2 the next day because if they do them too close, they get shadow banned. I don't know why. I don't know who decides these things, but that's the TikTok tip of the day.
Interesting. Well, I'll have to keep that in mind because yeah, I posted them basically back to back. So
But you broke the algorithm. You did it. You got through. Good job. You got
yeah,
to 600. If you're at 200, that means you're in algorithm jail. So you did it.
Interesting. Are you on TikTok, Chris? Have you tried it?
I have an account on TikTok. I use it for watching videos only, but it seems now I'm just getting served sitcom short clips is all I get. So I use it maybe once a month now. I need to do something to reset my likes or whatever it is that I'm doing. I'm doing it wrong. So I have never made a TikTok in my life. I originally just set it up so that I could spy on my children, but they both blocked me. So they found me out quite a lot. In fact, what they did originally, they made fake accounts, added me to that, and occasionally posted it, so they thought I was seeing what I thought. It turned out they weren't.
Clever.
Nice. They outsmarted you on that one.
Yeah, indeed,
Sure.
indeed. I give up.
Yeah, it must be really tough to keep up with all the different demands, and I sometimes wonder like how much is it that we just think that we have to stay on the treadmill, and how much of it is reality that we really do. Like, because Nico, I think you mentioned you want to stay present and you want to be, you want to be consistent and stay kind of, out of the algorithm jail, and it's this weird. Sometimes I feel like you're on like a mouse on a wheel. Sometimes like we have to constantly be there to keep feeding the machine, I guess.
Yeah, I think new writers for sure, or writers that are still like establishing themselves for sure, feel that. And frankly, I think it is a necessity. Like, I think the social media world we live in now kind of requires it. Just from like what I've seen, what I've done myself, how I've watched other writers come up, and the ones that don't use social media are the ones that have agents and have their books already in stores and have done, like they don't need it. They're established. And the ones, like me in the slush piles still, like I feel like it's a bit more of a necessity, for better or worse.
yeah. A friend of mine that has like social media down pat is Candice Nola.
Oh, yeah.
I like study her page. I'm like, this is how you do it.
Stay hydrated.
Yeah, stay hydrated every day. Stay hydrated.
Yeah.
But it is interesting that the likes of Twitter, there is sort of an established way to do it that gives people a way to at least explore getting an audience, given something they can actively put their time in rather than just kind of, I published my book. Now what, do I hope it catches fire or gets caught by somebody? It gives them something to invest their time in. So it definitely has some value
Mhm.
at the moment for sure.
Hmm. Definitely. Yeah, it is an interesting conversation, I think, to have all the different platforms and the demands and if it's preconceptions or if it's really reality. So it's a tough one for sure. Yeah. But I noticed that both of you write also sci-fi, and it
Yep.
seems like all these different genres are starting to blend, and that's what I love about it. I think, Nico, you mentioned that back 10 years ago, it seems like you had to have a clear, defined genre, and that's still some case sometimes, depending on what you're writing, but it's lots of genre blending, which I really love.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking about this recently because I was trying to define what my brand was. And I realized that because someone asked me, what type of horror do you write? And I was like, well, I wrote a book about like a croissant coming to life and killing somebody. But then I also wrote like this really serious book about like a woman escaping abuse. And then I have one that's like an escapism thing. And then I have another one about grief. And it was all over the map. And I was like, you know, when I started in romance, they told me to come up with 3 adjectives to describe like how you want people to perceive your writing. And then from those 3 adjectives, you come up with colors that match the adjectives. And then everything you do reflects those colors and those words. And that's your brand. That's how I was taught to
Hmm.
do branding. And I don't necessarily, and I think it's worked. It was fun, but I do think that things are a bit different now. You can write a bunch of different styles, and then your brand becomes more about the content. Like I write queer characters. I write, mother-child relationships that are toxic. Like you'll see those in everything I do. So I do think things are a bit different now in how we do genres, how we define ourselves as writers, how we define our brand, which is pretty exciting from a writing point of view. I don't know how it is from a reader point of view because I definitely understand that a reader would like a writer and expect them to have a certain type of story every single time. But I always think of like Haley Piper because she's brilliant, right? And queer positive. Like that's what I would say. Like she always says, make horror gay AF. Like that's what she does. But she writes like, sci-fi and fantasy and horror and vagina monsters and things like that. So I think she's like this great example of genre blending, but when you pick up her books, like what you're getting, even though you know that you're going to get a bunch of different genres. So she's like, I look up to her in terms of like the new author and how we will be defining ourselves in the future in terms of genres and branding and things like that.
What about you, Robert? Do you feel the need to stick to a certain genre or to kind of have a defined genre, or your branding? Is that something that you are conscious about?
Uh, Actually, I'm conscious about not defining a genre. I never wanted to be like pigeonholed into a certain direction.
Mhm.
So actually, with like I have a short story collection, and I didn't even realize that I was writing in different genres at first. But then the first few people started to get it, and they were like, "Oh, it's a blend of sci-fi and horror and all this," and I'm like, I didn't know I was doing that. I was just kind of writing stories.
And Chris, as a reader, what are your thoughts on that?
So it's something I've been thinking about a lot recently because we were talking about we were going through a bit of a fantasy funk, and my reading is all over the shop now. In fact, my movie watching is all over the shop. My TV watching is all over the shop. I've seen and read and consumed so much content that actually just one thing all the time, as opposed to when I was younger, is absolutely not what I want. You even see this through mainstream writers that tend to genre bounce as well within themselves. Brandon Sanderson does sci-fi, he does fantasy, he does kids books, etc., all that kind of stuff. So I think as we become an audience that consumes a lot of content in a lot of different forms, I think it's sort of encouraged that we should explore multiple things. And to that point, I think we become kind of agnostic to actually that it is a genre to start off with. It's a bit like what Robert was saying when he was writing there. It was just, I didn't consciously go in wanting to write this kind of genre bending thing, but it just sort of came out that way. And that's for somebody else to notice because they are consuming it with maybe a critical eye or something, whereas you were doing it from a creative perspective.
Yeah, I agree.
I think for me, I have authors that I follow and that I'm fans of, and if they write a sci-fi book or if they write a horror book or a romance book, I'm like, well, I like their work, I'll check it out. So it's like, you kind of follow the certain writings, certain. I think a lot of it is expectations too, because I'm open to different genres. So I guess there may be a group that is no, I just want horror or I just want fantasy or I just want romance, but I think that's changing. I think by and large, I think most people are open to different types of things because, like Chris said, we have lots of content to consume, and a lot of it just goes back and forth between different genres, which is nice.
Yeah.
You look at a lot of the most successful things that we've had in the past couple of years, and they all are genre benders. Like pretty much, the Game of Thrones was a genre bender in its own right, both as a book and then as a TV series. Even the rebranding of Marvel movies, etc., did this comedy action drama thing quite well, but it was very genre in its own right. The stuff that they kind of didn't do for many years. They kind of went, oh, we can't make this too geeky because it has to have a mainstream audience, and then of course goes full circle and they go, this isn't geeky enough. But we need to turn it up, and then you get something ridiculous like Quantum Mania. I'm not going to say any more than that. So yeah, it's always constantly evolving. I think it's probably the bit that it probably will continue to do going forward as trends move in and out.
I'm sorry that the entire time you're talking, there's like 50 ambulances going by.
Oh, no worries. Hope whoever it is okay.
It's okay. Yeah.
Matt's Fantasy Book Reviews. TikTok allows me to read more because my wife is addicted and doesn't interrupt me reading as often. All hail TikTok.
In fairness, while I'm scrolling TikTok, my husband's playing video games, and it works out really well.
Yeah.
Like we have our independent
Everybody's happy. Yeah.
screen times. Yeah, everyone's happy. I'll just watch dogs playing games, and then over and over. Yep, and he's playing video games.
Yeah, works out all right. And by the way, I don't know who hasn't seen Matt's reading setup, but he has like this stand that holds his Kindle above him, and he just like leans back in this recliner and has the Kindle. It's amazing. You check it out. It's crazy, unreal.
He has a clicker for turning the pages in his hand, so he doesn't have to lift his hands out from underneath the covers. It's
I love that.
It just blew my mind. That's
like,
awesome.
Almost, he could do it in a straitjacket. He could.
That's the coolest thing ever.
The Hannibal Lecter thing. Nobody strapped it. And he could do it like that. Yeah.
Oh,
now I'm
nice.
double thinking how I do everything.
I know, right? Oh my goodness, that's nice.
It is wild. I'd be asleep in like 2 minutes though. I'd be out. But
that was all.
He looks so comfy. Yeah. He looks so comfy though. Yeah, it's blew my mind. Just like that's possible. You can do that. Yeah. So great job, Matt.
Yeah.
Very very
Love
cool.
that post. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was great.
Blew my mind for sure. And Robert, on your bio, and we talked a little bit about at AuthorCon about your photography. What got you into photography, and what kind of how does that affect your writing or creativity in general?
My photography was actually also a result of ADHD. I have very poor memory skills, and I would go on these fantastic trips, and I'd forget everything a month later. So I started taking photos to help me remember the trips I went on. And as I was taking these photos, I was like, well, now I'm bored with this. I need to start taking more creative photos and start getting into more dynamic angles and stuff. And I got my first camera. It was a D3200 Nikon. In high school, I got that. It was a pretty cheap camera. It was $300, so lower end for cameras. But I fell in love with the art of photography and photo editing. And there's another ambulance. And but I definitely think it affects my writing because you have to focus in on very specific odd angles. And it's the same thing with writing. zero in on one thing. Like, here is a description of this character. I'm going to describe specifically their lips. So I'm going to describe specifically how the creases of their eyes move when they talk and stuff. So I definitely think they go hand in hand.
Interesting. Very interesting. Nico, do you have any other hobbies that you enjoy doing when you're not writing?
Yeah, I kind of jump from hobby to hobby. So I do embroidery, I bake, I've knitted, did watercolors for a while.
Oh,
I
cool.
I do I like get really like hyper focused on a hobby, and then I do a ton of it, and then I put it aside. So I have like, I don't know, like 50 embroidery things. I have like them up here, like they're all over the house. And then I haven't done any since. So that's kind of what I do. Yeah. But it's nice to have a creative outlet, you know, other than writing.
Sure.
Keeps the creativity flowing. It's fun.
Watercolors sound really neat.
Yeah, never really got good at it, but still very relaxing to do. It's good to work on being, because I'm a bit of like a perfectionist. Like I just feel like I have to be perfect at everything. And being so terrible at watercolors was a really like cathartic experience for me. Like I started to see how bad I could do just to like break through some of the perfectionism, you know, that I have. So I was like just kind of going crazy on the page and stuff and making nothingness and messes, and it was very relaxing.
Yes.
Depresses me. I used to be good at sketching and drawing, just like my kids are now. You know, as like instead of watching TV or while watching TV, just be sketching, doing that. And I haven't done it in about 20 years. And I tried to go back recently, and it was like the skills are all gone. This is properly depressing. This is
no.
Well, if you really want to be depressed about that, bringing it back to Aesop Rock, if you want to listen to the song Rings, it's heartbreaking. It's about like you losing your artistic endeavors throughout the years and stuff, and it gets to me because I used to draw as well, and I haven't picked up the pen in like 3 years.
Oh, I can see it on your face, Chris.
It's so sad, especially when I watch my kids and go, they've got skills. Like my youngest just draws all day, every day. Literally, what she's doing, that kind of, again, it's sort of like a ADHD thing for her as well. Is like just shut everything else out, headphones go on, and just sketch. You know, just kind of reset everything, and kind of go, and then at that age, she's convinced that this is just going to be what she's going to do the rest of her life. But of course, life usually has a plan and kind of more distractions that'll come along, and then she might look back on it someday and go, "Remember, I used to do that all day, every day." So,
nice to have those creative outlets, though, for sure.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah.
20 years, huh? You didn't 20 years. You didn't come back to it.
Nope. I think it was one of those things you made a decision when you were about 18, 20, you know, about kind of career paths. Because, like I said, I'm a maths teacher. So lots of people would put me in the maths science bracket. But really, realistically, I was an art student for the first 20 years of my life until one day I was in a maths class and I kind of, like a little light bulb went off my head. Like the neurons started connecting and firing and took me down another path. But before that, I was nearly totally committed to not doing any of that. And doing creative arts in some way. So it was like almost like a purposeful choice. It was nearly like, oh, I'm going to be an adult now and I have to leave all this stuff behind. I still kept some music. I still had, you know, video games probably to a certain extent. But, you know, it's one of the reasons that I ended up starting to do a bit of YouTube as well, because you need that creative endeavor that kind of you put time and effort into. Whether anybody watches it or not is neither here or there for me, because it's the process. It's really important. The genesis of the idea, working through how you're going to do it, executing it, and then putting it out, and then kind of going, right, I can sit back and do it now, or watch it now, or see how it comes out, and try not to look at the numbers.
Yeah, that's a tough part, right?
You get better at it though. Like after the first year, I think you're like, I don't care anymore.
Whatever.
Yeah.
And Robert, and you had mentioned about wanting and thinking about launching a YouTube channel, and Nico, you have one, and you kind of tinker around. What's stopping either of you from from kind of going all in on it and just trying to create content?
I feel like you're
Time.
calling me us out here, Steve.
Well, no, I love when authors launch their channels because I love seeing their perspective, and they always make for me the most interesting content because they bring that writing perspective, and I learn so much from writers when they kind of just make they created, like our friend JCM Byrne recently launched the channel. It's fantastic
It's so
content
good.
that
Yeah.
and it feels like I'm going to a class when I watch his content. So I'm trying to encourage both of you to do it because I love to learn from both of you. So I'm being selfish, but I'd love to see both of you create content.
Yeah, I definitely want to soon. I think the biggest hurdle for me isn't even like time management or anything. It's the fact that I'm like incredibly insecure about how my voice sounds.
I think everybody is. I think that's
Yeah.
kind of true.
Yeah.
I think there was a video that I watched many years ago before it started, which was kind of the breaking point where somebody said, as much as you think people, especially people that know you, if they found out you were doing it or hearing yourself back, you'd be surprised, and after about 2 or 3 videos, how little you or anybody else cares. Like even if you were a 12, 13-year-old kid, and you can imagine being in school and you did that kind of stuff, people will make fun of you for the first 2 or 3 videos, and then if you kept on doing it, they'd just be like, "Oh, it's just what they do." It's just kind of part of their process and part of what they do. And that kind of resonated with me to kind of say, they're probably right. At the end of the day, if anybody would watch it in the first place, this would only ever be a problem if it ever got an audience. And at that point, the fact that you have an audience counteracts the fact that you're self-conscious in the first place. So it was like a no risk problem in some ways.
Yeah, I think that's a good mindset to have.
What about you, Nico? What's I know you post now and then on your channel, or the channel you created, but what's stopping you from kind of going all in on it?
Well, time is a big one,
Hmm.
but I also something that I just struggle with is trying to figure out the best way to use all these different platforms and what to put on them, and if I should be splitting up content or whatever or not. And that's just always been something that like I just don't know what to do. I don't know. And I have an idea for a YouTube channel that I just because I love to bake. That's
Oh
something
yeah.
that I just really enjoy doing. And I have celiac, so now it's gluten free, which is not as fun. Um, but I wanted to. I've wanted for years to do a YouTube channel where we pair like a horror book, a horror movie with a horror dessert, and like
Oh.
bake it and do it
So
all
good.
together. And it's just it's daunting to me, like the amount of work that would go into it. But it would be a lot of fun. It's just something that's been on the back burner for a long time. And I was like, well, that would be really cool to do solely on YouTube, because I
Yeah.
could put longer
Mhm.
videos on YouTube or whatever. But no, we'll just kind of see, really. I don't know. We'll just see. I wish there was more time to get stuff done, really.
It's a great idea. I love that idea.
That
That's
is
so
an amazing
cool.
idea.
Yeah. Great idea.
There is somebody who does it with cocktails, does like horror books
Mm.
with a horror cocktail, which is
Hmm.
pretty fun. Um, but yeah, that's just something in the back burner for years that I've been like toying with. So we'll see.
What's your favorite thing to bake? If someone wanted one thing for you to bake, what would you make for them to kind of represent what you do and why you enjoy baking?
I really like to bake. I bake an apple pie cake, and it's my
Ooh.
favorite, and it's so yummy. It's like all the apple pie gooiness and gumminess. Like my husband's favorite dessert is an apple pie, and I really like cake, so I combined them one day, and that's just what we make now. I'm making one this weekend because they're so good. It's so yummy. So, yeah, we're very big with the decadent desserts. There's no like margarine in this house. It's definitely butter. You know what I mean? So,
Oh yeah.
That
so it's just gooey, yummy, decadent stuff,
that
gluten
sounds
free now,
incredible.
which isn't as decadent, but anyone out there who has to eat gluten free knows it's expensive and it's dry and it's crumbly and it takes a lot of work to try to get it to be moist and delicious and last longer than a day.
Chris, I think you're drilling with
I,
all
I
the
do you
fun
know
cake.
The ironic thing is, I as a concept, dessert doesn't really interest me, but there's certain like particular types of dessert that just catch my imagination sometimes, and that did.
Yeah. I used to run a home donut shop,
Hmm.
home bakery donut shop
Puff
before I
donuts.
dedicated solely to writing allergy friendly donuts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Erotic horror about donuts is definitely a book that I can.
An erotic horror where someone owns a donut shop
Just
and the donuts come to life
lots of
and
descriptive text about donuts. I am very much. I can be the complete romance part. me with the donut.
oh.
Nice, very nice. I'm still thinking about the apple pie cake. It's going to be
Oh my
tough to
God.
get that out of my mind now.
It's yummy.
And it is tough making gluten-free desserts because it's a whole new.
It's a whole new.
You have to rethink everything to do that kind of stuff. So it is tough.
Yeah. And they're expensive. That's the it makes me so mad that a bag of flour, normal flour is like $2 and a bag of gluten-free flour is like $11. It's makes me so angry. Yeah, you can't just experiment with baking with gluten-free stuff. It's too expensive. You have to have a recipe and know what you're doing. It's too expensive to just mess around.
Yeah, have to be very purposeful.
Yes.
Yeah. And we talked earlier about characters and developing characters, but what makes a character compelling for you, Robert? Will you tell us what you try to add to characters, or just you as a reader or consumer of entertainment? What makes a character compelling for you?
What makes a character compelling? Oh, that's a good question. So for me, it's how they bounce off other characters. It's like the real important part. Uh, like I obviously like the romance dynamic, but also how they bounce off their friends, how they bounce off like their family. Uh, they're compelling when they like have a set way to go, and kind of like not where they're heading, but like you hear something they say and you're like, oh yeah, that's what that character would say. That's instead of like them being a vessel for the author to
Hmm.
kind of say what they want to say. It's more let the characters say what they need to say.
Hmm. That must be tough sometimes, right?
Oh yeah, it's very tough. I rewrite dialogue constantly.
That must be tough. Nico, what about you? What makes a character compelling for you?
Kind of going off of that, I think believability and like an authenticity to them. If there's somebody that readers can connect to, that I can connect to, even if they're completely different, if they're like an alien or something completely different, but their humanity, the essence of who they are, like that's really compelling, and their strength that they draw from that is compelling. So somebody who's likable in that regards, I would say.
What about you, Chris? As a reader, what makes a character compelling?
Yeah, I had a far less eloquent version of what Nico just said there, which was something along the lines of the character having heart, and I don't mean just heart in a sense that they're good. I mean in the sense that their motivations are both complex but clear, if that makes sense. So somebody just doing something has to, like Nico says, that authenticity of their actions has to be rooted in something that you can either root for them or root against them, and actually understand where they're coming from, whether you believe them or don't. And I think heart and there's certain emotions I often say that we don't see very often in books, and certain books hit those really well. And to me, those are the books that really connect with me. I can think of things like I remember talking about Assassin's Apprentice by Robin Hood, but the idea of pride. Pride is an emotion that you don't really see in books and it's very hard to convey, but it's all over that book, for instance, and it just kind of bounced off it every time. I was like, these are emotions that I don't normally feel, when I'm reading, watching, or doing anything, and they kind of do. So it's usually something like that that'll do. And I inherently like good characters. I'm that person. The boring that kind of will root for a hero or try and find a hero somewhere.
Yeah, and I think on top of what Chris and Nico was saying, it's I can't remember what interview it was in, but it was an interview with M. Night Shyamalan, who is my absolute favorite film director ever. I love the man to death. But it's an interview with him, and he says that every person on this planet has a weird quirk to them, like just something about them that makes them like an oddball. And he said if you embed a character with that, and you just like every one of your characters should have this weird quirk to them, even if it's subtle, to just kind of draw them in and make them feel more believable.
What's your favorite M. Night movie?
Signs. I love
Signs.
Signs. It's my favorite movie of all time.
Oh wow.
Is that the one when they're in the field? They're like on a farm.
Yeah,
Okay.
with the aliens. Yeah.
The water. Okay. Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen it, but yeah.
Yeah.
It's a good one.
Am I allowed to say The Village?
I love The Village. I adore
like
The
The Village.
Village.
Yeah,
That's okay.
I like.
I'm
The
never
Village.
sure whether that's an appropriate answer. I know it kind of falls apart at the end a little bit, but you know, everything up again sort of has this folk horror-esque. Me and Steve were talking about this about an hour or so ago. It has that kind of folk horror kind of slant to it.
Yeah, The Village is one of the ballsiest movies I think I've ever seen, because it's like the entire thing is literally you set up one genre and then you push into a different genre real quick.
Yeah.
I like The Village. I know it gets a lot of grief, but I really enjoyed it.
I enjoyed it too. Yeah.
It was a
Good
good
storyteller. Have you ever seen Servant? I keep on hearing Servant's great.
I haven't seen Servant yet. I need to.
I hear it's fantastic. And very long. Have you? There's a.
one.
Either Steve's doing a dance.
I thought it was okay. That was all right. You know, it was okay. It wasn't bad. I just wasn't blown away with it either. So, but it's been a while, so maybe rewatch. Do you have a favorite movie, Nico, that speaks to
My
you?
favorite movie is Midsummer, which people either
Ooh.
love or hate. So there we are. Oh, Chris, do you have an opinion?
We just talked about this on my other channel. We watched it. We talked with our friend Lady Jane Books, and had a great discussion about that one. Yeah. I think we'll enjoyed it.
I mean, we did all enjoy it. There are some parts of it that I don't love quite as often. But having said that, though, Lady Jane Books has just been theory crafting off this for weeks now, and it has made it about twice as good a movie that was since I finished watching it myself. So, I think it's a very good movie, regardless of any like kind of qualms it may have.
I don't know why I connect with that movie so much. It's become a comfort watch for me. And I know.
Midsummer and comfort are not two words that I'm often seeing in a review.
I don't know. I just really, really love it. I know it, and I know like I've seen all like the hot takes and videos about people and what they have to say, and I get it all. I just really connect somehow with that. I mean, I love like feminist horror to begin with. I love female empowerment horror. I understand that the ending is not necessarily empowering, but I love like how you have to devolve into madness in order to find happiness. Like, wow, like yes, like I get that sometimes that it's the insanity that makes you free. I love it. I love it. So yeah.
It's funny because I called Hereditary my comfort movie about 2 hours ago.
Exactly right. Yeah,
that's why we laugh. But
that movie I can't watch again. It scared me so much. It disturbed me so badly that I don't think I can ever watch it again. I love it.
Wow.
Just can't do it.
So you didn't laugh then? That's okay.
Oh yeah, no. You know what? Didn't find that one humorous. Like the heads and nope, didn't. Wasn't a chuckle for me. No.
I don't want to spoil Midsummer for anyone who hasn't seen it, who may be watching or listening, but I'll have to run some theories by you sometime about. I won't say too much, but there's lots.
Sure.
Lady Jane Books has been like sending me theories like every day about what this could mean, and so I don't have to spoil anything. But
proper gold. Yeah.
Yes, really good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, see a whole different point of view. Definitely, great movie though.
Yeah. I definitely enjoyed it for sure. I love all of his movies. Like now, our like every time he puts something out, I'm gonna go watch it because I just love that. I love Hereditary and all the stuff.
So good, so good. Chris,
we had such a good chat about Hereditary like about an hour and a half ago. It was just sensationally good. Yeah.
Yeah, really good, really good. There is on that one too. Yeah. Robert, you mentioned the music. What's your favorite Lupe Fiasco song?
My favorite Lupe Fiasco song, Mural. I love Mural. It's like I think it's the densest song I've ever heard, like wordplay wise.
Mm.
It's just like layers and layers of like metaphor, and I've watched like half an hour, 40-minute long videos just deciphering like single verses in it. It's absurd the level of that went into creating
Wow.
that song.
Well, I'm gonna go listen to it as we're done.
Yeah.
Do either of you listen to music while you write?
I listen. Oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I listen to usually instrumental music. I listen to a lot of John Williams while I write, mostly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I wish I could listen to music when I write. It's a little too distracting for me, but I listen to music to like hype me up to write. So
Mm.
that's what I do. But I wish I could.
So,
So
so
silent.
what's your hype song?
Oh, I just have like a feminine rage playlist, like on Spotify, and I just put that up really loud and just whatever fills that. That's what I do.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
We're pumped and ready to go now. We're ready to start work.
Exactly. It's just a lot of like, female singers screaming into microphones, and I'm like, okay, now I'm ready to write some horror.
Nice. Very nice. What's some of your go-to? So you have like a go-to or one that really gets you going? A song or a band?
Right now, I'm listening to Chinchilla's "Run Little Girl" on repeat, which I found on TikTok, by the way. And
Of course.
yeah, so that's that. Or like Ash Nico, I've listened to a lot of. She's pretty angry. It's a lot of like pop, like a lot of pop that people 20 years younger than me are listening to, but I thoroughly enjoy nonetheless.
I love Ash Nico, so
Yes, she's fantastic. I love her so much. Her new stuff is so great. So I've been listening to a lot of that as well. Yeah.
Seems like people have to apologize for liking pop music now. This seems to be like this thing that has happened in the past 10 years of like, I actually listen to pop music. Like it's literally called pop because it's popular. I don't know.
Right? When I was like a teenager, I listened to like the alternative grunge stuff, like the Nirvana and everything
Yeah,
like
yeah.
that. And then from there, and then like pop was so uncool, like in those
Massively, yeah.
grunge circles. And from there, like I really never found like music again that I loved and connected with as much as I loved and connected like with the 90s grunge era. And then I found angry music. And then I was like, oh, these are my people. So I've circled back around, and it just so happens that
That's
there's a
good.
lot of angry young women artists. So that's where I've landed.
Works out pretty well. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite band from the '90s grunge era? Because I'm from that era too, so it's always fun to hear what your go-to band was back then.
I listened to Live. I loved Live. That was my favorite. I
Ah,
saw them in concert
interesting.
so many times. I just adored them. Not as grunge as like a Nirvana or like a Metallica or Offspring or Green Day or something, but like those were like I loved that era of music. And it's coming back a little bit. Like Nirvana is kind of coming back and people are starting to remember who that is. But like I watch the TikTok challenges of like millennials and Generation Z or
Yes,
whatever,
yeah.
and the amount of Gen Z that don't know who like Kurt Cobain is, it like breaks my little alternative heart. Like for me, they're like Beatles, Rolling Stones, Nirvana, like they're up there, like they're legendary. Like we have failed as like a Gen X old millennials teaching musical theory, like the greats to the next generation if so many people don't know who Kurt Cobain is.
I have a semi-funny story. When I was taking my youngest to buy, just got one of those cheap vinyl players, and they were going downtown. They were going to buy. They'd got a bit of money. They were going to buy a vinyl album, and they were buying Ed Sheeran's new album at the time. And I died a little inside. But as we got to the counter, it was one of those deals where for £10 you could buy Nevermind, right? With any other purchase. And I says, look, buy this. You will thank me. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but at some stage of your life, you will thank me that you have Nevermind on vinyl. And for years, he told me, you made me waste £10. It was almost like this debt that I had put on him. Except now, we are on our second biography of Kurt Cobain,
There
and
we go.
we're absolutely Nirvana mad. So
There we go. You've done your
that,
job.
that's exactly what I said. I did say one day you will go through really serious Nirvana phase, especially if you have it sitting in your room.
Yeah. Yeah. Good stuff.
So.
That was good music back then.
Mhm.
I just don't know how to make records anymore.
I would go for Soundgarden, would have been my pick.
Ah,
Really?
yes, I remember that.
Love Soundgarden.
Yeah. I'm actually seeing the Pumpkins in a couple months. So I'm
Ah,
excited
wow.
about- Yeah.
You
Oh
album out?
man, yeah.
Can't pass it up.
We're very old, Robert. I don't know. If you...
Robert's like, what are you
No,
all
I
talking
mean,
about?
I have a vinyl collection, and it's funny because it goes from like Aesop Rock, Travis Scott to like AC/DC, Rolling Stones. Like, there's a little bit of everything in there.
Nice for sure. Yeah.
That's that eclectic mix though that we're talking about in terms of genres and all of that kind of stuff. Sometimes you want that, sometimes you want that, sometimes you just want angry women shouting at you quite loudly through your speakers.
Yeah. We all need that every now and then.
I'm totally with that.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Yeah. Have you heard Rollo Tomasi, Nico?
Rolo Tomasi. I don't think so.
Yeah, maybe. I'll send you a link, but maybe you might woman angry yelling. They're great
Sounds
though.
great.
So yeah, good stuff.
And the line out of a character in the line out of LA Confidential, one of my favorite films. Very key line.
What about you, Robert? What was something that was very as you were growing up? What's something that stuck with you from your time period that spoke to you or that has stuck with you that you still go back to now?
I don't know if it's like something I still go back to now, but it's definitely like inspired what I go back to now. I grew up in the Eminem era, so I was very like I think originally when I first started writing poetry, it was kind of like basically directly ripping off Eminem, but then I started realizing that like I went from him to other artists, and that's how I really got, because I've always been in the rap scene, so that's how I really got into the rap scene was through him. But he's basically all I listened to in middle school, and I still go back to his older stuff. Stuff made prior to like 2010 when he fell off.
It's kind of sad. Yeah.
Talented guy though. Very talented.
Yeah, very talented guy. Like he still makes incredible music every once in a while. It's just there's a lot of duds.
But it must be so hard when you get to that level of fame to the point where you could literally release anything, do like 2-3 days work, throw all this stuff together, put it out, and say that's your creative output for a long while, and people will buy it in massive numbers. It must be so hard to actually go, well, let's do something good with this all the time. I think that must be so hard to keep yourself motivated to that level.
Yeah, it must be. And he's still like in his last album, he put out the song Darkness, which I still think is like a really cool track.
Yeah.
About like the inside of the mind of a shooter and stuff. Like it's very dark and it's very like classic Eminem, where he's like really throwing everything at it. And it's like after being in the game that long, like he can still pull out something like that. It's pretty incredible.
It must be hard too when you reach that level of fame that everyone's telling you how great you are all the time. You would like to think it wouldn't get to you, but I would imagine after a while, I don't think you'd get to anyone. That must be tough to hold it together and to stay motivated and to put the amount of work in that you did at the beginning when everyone's constantly praising you all the time. It must be tough to manage that level of fame.
You must be able to identify with that, Steve, surely.
I have no idea. I'm just sympathetic. I have no idea. I have zero life experience with any of that. So I'm just trying to give them benefit of the doubt, but it must be tough. Yeah, I've seen enough documentaries. Maybe is what it is.
Well, I do say, like, for somebody with that fame, especially because so many of them get it so young, how could you ever possibly be a stable person with that kind of lack of balance? Because most of us go through our lives of having their ups and downs and kind of living with shame of something or somebody, saying no or anything like that, getting turned down, getting heartbroken, all of that kind of stuff. Probably not at the same level if you're going through that. Like, that's just, I pity actually that lifestyle, even though it would sort of from the outset seem desirable. You know.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like a certain level of notoriety that you want to hit, and you don't want to go over that when you're in the autistic field.
I read an article, or I think it was actually in a book. I think Chuck Palahniuk's nonfiction book actually. It was a story about Stephen King where he was doing a signing and it was an auditorium full of people. And Stephen King was like starting to do his autographs, and he had somebody like massaging his shoulder because he was getting cramped because he was doing so many autographs and stuff. And then they had to put like an ice compress on him. And then at some point, he somehow, I think he got like a paper cut or something, and he was bleeding, and someone was like, "Oh, I'll go get you a band-aid." And the fan was like, "No, like, can you put blood on the page?" And so he did, and then from then on, for everybody else behind him, he put his
Yeah,
blood,
wicked blood.
literally like signing his blood on the paper of these books. And then when he was done, he was so exhausted and his arm muscles were so sore that somebody had to like hoist him and like help him out. And the narrator was thinking like, is that the level, like, is that what we're shooting for? Like, we're shooting to be this level of fame where we're like literally giving our blood to our fans. And it's almost like a be careful what you wish for thing, you
Yeah.
know, like you hit a certain level and it's madness that you probably never expected.
Wow, that's
It's not something I'm gonna have to worry about, thankfully. So.
Well, I don't want to brag, guys, but I made 28 cents last month for my royalty check. So, yeah. I'm
28
well on
cents
my
more than
way.
me.
yeah. 20 cents more than me too. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm rolling in pennies over here. So, I'm well on my way.
That's a strange story. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, it's, you don't really like think about the toll it would take when you get what you want, or like if you really wanted to hit that level, but you know, your privacy's gone. People feel like they have some sort of agency over you. They feel entitled to your time. Like, yeah, it's, you know.
And the other side of it, I think, especially talking to yourselves, is that for somebody like Stephen King, his hobby, his passion became his job. That's a very dangerous road to go down because the bit that keeps you stable, the bit that keeps you level and gives you an opportunity to vent in some way is the bit you're reliant on for your day to day. And I worry about, like, there's so many artists that have committed suicide, etc. Because I often think their outlet became the bit that was making them depressed, and that must be a very hard road to walk down and kind of balance it. You'd be all right, Nico, because you'll have your embroidery and your watercolors and all of that other stuff. You just move on to something else new, but maybe somebody else can't do that.
No, I was thinking like that's a really interesting perspective on it. Like if that's your passion, that's your outlet, like, you know, like writing is a form of therapy for me. So
Indeed.
like if that's it, that's your thing, and then it becomes the thing that keeps the lights on and feeds your family. And then especially with creative outlets, it's so subjective. Your paycheck is subjective. So if you don't keep pleasing them and writing things that sell, you know, there's such a business aspect to it, then you lose the thing that you love. Yeah, that would be really hard. And if nothing else, you
Yeah.
know, to fall back, yeah, that would be really
Tough.
shattering.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. But I did have a couple of questions for both of you before we call it a night that I like to ask all my guests. The first one is Robert. If you can take this one, kick us off with. Do you have any favorite family recipes?
Favorite family recipes. Oh, my mom makes the best salmon in the world. I actually I'm getting her to teach it to me next week because I don't know the recipe yet. But she makes the best salmon I've ever had. It's incredible. It's air fried, but it's like all these different spices and stuff. And she's like I said, she's gonna teach it to me next week. I'm so excited.
Wow.
And what about you, Nico? Do you have a favorite family recipe?
Um, we do sugar cookies, and it's like the one thing that's kind of been passed down, and they're really really good. It's more like the fact that it's the thing that survived. The recipe that survived for so long is the sugar cookie recipe, and it has a little twist, and it's a secret. We can never tell, but
The
that
best
would be
ones.
it. Yeah.
The
Yeah.
best ones. We do have a question from Star. Can you share the link to that Spotify playlist?
To which one? To the Angry Femmes? Yeah, for sure. You all can experience angry women as well. Or you could just go to Spotify and click angry women and they will definitely help you out.
Nice. I'm gonna try that out. The next one is was there a hobby or activity that you were excited to try, but when you tried it, you didn't enjoy it?
Yes. I tried some martial arts and I don't remember which one it was, but I thought it'd be so cool to be able to fight like that. And I don't do well with like authority or people telling me what to do like as an adult. So the idea of like having to stand with my head bowed was not the person who was teaching me was someone who was like, don't look me in the eyes. Like, we're not on the same level. You can't look me in the eyes. Look down. And I was like, this isn't going to work. I'm sorry.
That's funny because
So-
I'm actually a third degree black belt. I did
Wow.
I did karate from God, I was 5 until I was 17.
That's awesome. I would love to learn. I just don't want to learn I want to be
In
like
that-
equal. I want to,
Yeah.
like,
In that environment, yeah.
yeah, but I understand that's a big part of it, like the discipline part of it. But that's really cool.
But for me, basically any sport that wasn't martial arts, I tried every sport under the sun, and I was terrible at literally all of them. The only one that stuck was track, so the one where you didn't have to do anything but run in circles.
Star clarifies the feminist rage one.
Sure, yeah. I'm
I'll
glad I
put it in
can
the
spread the
comments.
feminist rage to everyone. It makes me happy.
I want to listen to like 3 songs and have that feeling of now I'm ready to write.
It gets you in a mood.
At what point, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. So the next one is one of my favorites. Is if the zombie apocalypse happened today, what would be your weapon of choice?
Assuming I'm not immediately killed by a zombie.
That's what I was thinking.
Assuming you survive the first wave, what would be your weapon? What would you go for? Could be anything you want.
I'm thinking some sort of blade. Because you don't want anything that you have to reload, because that's not going to work. You have to cut its head off, right? Isn't that a thing? You have to like get that head, so it has to be sharp. Boy, I don't know. I'd probably be pretty boring. I'd probably have to go for some sort of blade.
What about you, Robert?
There's a weapon in this zombie game I play. I think it's Dead Rising, but I might be wrong. Where it's like a spear, but it has a spring at the end, so it springs you out and like springs you backwards, and then after you stab. I always thought that was a really funny weapon, and I always thought that would be cool.
Have we asked you this one, Chris? I don't think you've
Yes,
answered this
I
one.
have. I was going to say
Oh,
this
you
one
have?
is
Oh, okay.
this question is propagating its way through Northern Ireland because I did it with my family, and they've taken it into the school. And I still
nice.
think I have the best answer because they all go by baseball bat with nails, and my answer at the time was a monster truck.
Oh, that's
Oh
right.
yeah, there you go.
And people say, "But you'll run out of petrol and all those things," and I said, "I still bet you last longer than you do with your blade."
That's fair. That's fair. I agree. I'm not lasting long in the zombie apocalypse, anyways. Like I know
Well, I
my
would agree.
place in
I
that
need
society.
armor and a car or something, Remy.
I don't know. I work fast food, which is basically a zombie apocalypse, so I feel like I'd be prepared.
You're a pro already. Yeah, you're prepared. Like, this is just Tuesday for me. I don't know about you guys. Yeah,
Plus, you can do track and field, Robert. So that's another thing I definitely cannot do.
Yeah.
I need an engine.
yeah. So the last one I have for you is what was your first job?
My first job was in retail at a JCPenney in the furniture section, which was a learning experience.
What did you learn from that experience that you've taken with you throughout your life?
I have learned how to manage difficult people. You learn really quick how to manage difficult people. And you learn that people really don't have an edit button. They will say anything they want to you. regardless of if you're like a teenager just trying to earn some money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Any
Uh,
any bad experiences that you've kept with you?
The one that I had a condescending experience where I was working at the frame that I was doing the frames and the pictures, and a man bought a frame that was pretty big and we only had small bags. And I was like, I'm sorry, like, I can't give you a bag. These are the only bags we have. And I showed him, and he's like, well, I guess you're not an engineer because they would have figured it out. And the interesting thing was is I actually
Jeez.
was going to school for engineering, like I did get a degree in engineering, like I am an engineer. And he's standing there condescending me, and I'm like, literally tiny bag, big frame, like I don't know what magic you want me to do here, man. But like the condescending nature of this like middle-aged man talking down to me as a teenager, like in a
Oh,
summer job, has stuck with me.
it's
It made
awful.
him feel better though.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
What about you, Robert? I'm sorry. What was your first one or
yeah.
your first job?
So my first job was actually it was an interesting one because I don't think it's one many people have. I did contracting with my aunt and my cousin, and we went into houses that were like run down, repossessed, and stuff,
Hmm.
and we would fix them up for resale. So I started off doing just like painting and stuff, but they eventually they had me on like minor electrical work and stuff. My aunt's actually watching this
Wow.
right now, so so I have to say good things about her.
This was all planned.
Yeah. It's very important skills though to learn. Definitely when you're young. Yeah.
Yeah, I started when I was in high school, and I worked with her for a good few years, so it was nice. It was a good job to have.
Hmm. Was there a skill that you learned then that you still use now or still comes in handy for you?
Uh, I'd say like painting was the most valuable thing, like how to act because like it seems very simple, but you have to actually like know how to paint well, or else you're gonna have like really crappy walls and stuff.
I am the world's worst painter, so I'm gonna have to get some tips from you.
I was actually too much of a perfectionist, so I got taken off of it when we did floors because I would do the floors so much that they couldn't keep up.
Oh, I'd rather have a root canal than paint. I'm terrible at it. Our friend Drew is here. Dealing with the general public is something else, that's for sure.
Oh yeah.
It can be very tough. Yeah, definitely. So before we sign off, Robert and Nico and Chris, can you tell us where people can find you if they want to find you or your work? Robert, will you let us know?
Yeah, so I can be found. My most primary like location is Twitter. My Twitter is Cult Nobody. Um, so CULT Nobody. And my Facebook is just my name, Robert Poff. Those are the two I use most often. My TikTok is Cthulhu from State Farm.
Oh my gosh! You need to write a
Oh my
story
god, that's
called
awful.
Cthulhu
That's
from State
awesome.
Farm.
That would be so good.
That's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yes. Yes. All right. Well, my handles are not nearly as fun.
That's great.
I'm at Nico Bell Fiction. That's my website, and that is my Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Substack,
Spot the pro.
something. Yeah, that's where you'll find me everywhere, except Facebook. I don't have a Facebook account, but otherwise, yes.
Nice. And Chris.
You can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Chris Mohan Mohan, or you can find me on Patreon forums.
And all the links for Robert and for Nico are in the description, so everyone be sure and go check them out. Robert's link tree is there. All the links are there on the link tree, and Nico's website is also linked below. So be sure and check it out, and check out both of their work. Thanks to all of you. I know you're all very busy, so I really appreciate all of you to take the time to come and just have a fun chat. So really appreciate it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Thank you for inviting us.
Yes.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Anytime. So hope everyone has a fantastic weekend. Be safe out there, and we will see everyone very soon. Have a good one, everybody.